Why don't we get started with the bios of the lovely men sitting next to me. This is German football. You guys are all from Germany. We'll start leftmost, Jonas Bolt. You started as an intern at Bayer Leverkusen and eventually became the sporting director there, which is incredible at 32 years old. And you were most recently the chief of sports and communication at Hamburg. Jonas, everybody.
Thank you.
Next to him, Stefan Reinhardt, former professional soccer player, played in the Bundesliga, played in Champions League, so we have the player aspect here too. And then he developed a groundbreaking approach to soccer data analysis, leading him to then co-found IMPECT, which we'll talk about in a sec. Ahim Mittner, right next to me. You started your career in IT. Did I say it wrong?
Correct.
And then you invented a game analysis software where you then take the data that you get into a problem solution for clubs.
Right.
Platform solution for clubs. And you are the vice president of sports at SAP. So with all of that, these three men have known each other for a very long time. And I want you guys to go ahead and explain the relationship, but we'll get into that. So this is going to be dense because there is a lot of data, and we're going to make it as digestible as possible because it's so incredibly interesting. Let's start at the beginning to make it as digestible as possible. Stefan, why don't you take us back to 2014 at the German Sports University of Cologne and what happened that day?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for hosting us, first of all. Yeah, back in 2014, I was still a professional player for Bayer Leverkusen. If you're aware, Bayer Leverkusen won the championship last year. To be honest, we were not that good back in the time when I was a player, but still on an okay level, let's say it like this. And I was invited to the Sports University because the professor launched a book about all common statistics that were developed back in the time. So I guess you're aware, also as a host in the media, but also as a player, about all common football statistics like ball possession, winning tackles, running distance, and so on. And the takeaway of the evening, the takeaway of the study actually was all these statistics have no correlation to the end result. So they can't tell you anything about a player performance or team performance. And I guess you are as well as a player. I was a bit shocked, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess there are certain examples of that, but when you see that there is no correlation or a lack of correlation within these things, you then develop the concept of packing. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. I wanted to start with one example, if it's working, hopefully. I need some help.
Can you just move to the next slide, please?
I'm CEO of a software development company, but still I need some technical help, unfortunately. So I just want to start with one example of all the common statistics, and these are the statistics of a specific match which happened actually in 2014. So you can easily see that Team A had better stats within all common statistics. So they had more ball possession, better passing accuracy, more crosses, more dangerous attacks, more shots. Does any one of you know which game this actually was? Yes, please? Perfect answer, thanks a lot. This was the World Cup semi-final, and yeah, Germany beat Brazil 7-1, and to be honest, I guess all the German people were a bit drunken after 5-0 at halftime, but still we had the feeling that Germany won it not as a coincidence or not through variance, but just because they were the better team. But yeah, you can easily see that these statistics couldn't really reflect the team performance. And yeah, towards your question, this is why we started after the panel discussion straight away to create some concepts. Because interestingly, the second thesis of this panel evening was that football is too complex that you can create KPIs which are relevant for soccer. So I guess most of you are Americans, so I guess you're much more aware of the whole Moneyball approach. We just know the funny movie with Brad Pitt. And of course, the professor was aware of this, but he told us, yeah, but it's baseball, it's start and stop, and it's basketball perhaps as well, but it's just a few players. But football is too complex, 22 people, too much variance, too much coincidence. It's not possible to create KPIs. And have you ever watched the US sitcom How I Met Your Mother? Do you know this Barney Stinson moment? So this challenge accepted moment. Have you seen it?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's what went through your mind.
Yeah, exactly. This was like our moment that we thought, well, let's see. We got trained as players for some concepts, what we actually had to do on the pitch. So we thought, let's think about it. And what Jenny already touched on was our first approach was called packing. It was not rocket science, to be honest, but we just wanted to measure if an action is effective or not. So let's have a look at this pass. Of course, you can say that it's completed, but this doesn't tell you anything about the effectiveness of the pass. I can also play a back pass to my own goalkeeper. It's also completed, but the goal is on the other side, right? And we gave some more context to statistics, and that's why you can see the opponent's formation as the main context in football. I guess Daniel joined the pre-event yesterday evening in the Inter Miami Stadium as well, and I guess Daniel could also have scored 100 goals yesterday evening because actually it was an empty stadium, so no opponent there to defend. And that's why, yeah, we try to measure with this pass, for example, that this player bypasses 4 opponents, and this is, yeah, was our starting point. Let's say it like this, and just to perhaps close the book, you can easily see that Germany had less ball possession, but was much more effective with their ball possession. So they bypassed more opponents. They also bypassed more defenders, so more often like the last 5 players on the pitch for us. And this is how we defined it. And yeah, this was our starting point back in 2014 when I was just a professional football player back in the time. Yeah.
So you're still a professional football player, and you realize that there is a different way to measure effectiveness than what already exists. So you have this concept, and that leads you to the man next to you, who is at that point the sporting director of your team.
Exactly. Yeah, I gave a call to Jonas because, yeah, as you said, I was just a professional football player. We didn't really know what to do with this now concept. It was just like a scientific challenge, so to say. But so I called Jonas and to ask him whether he likes the idea or if he thinks, well, it would be better if you concentrate on what happens on the pitch. Yeah.
So before we get into him coming to you, you went, like I mentioned earlier, from intern to sporting director, which I think immediately piques my interest of how do you get from there to there? Can you talk me through that whole process?
Yeah, my dream was always to work in soccer, and I got the possibility to, being an intern in the youth department, where also Stefan played. I don't know if they listen to me exactly. Then I took the opportunity, were the first in the morning in the offices, maybe the last at the end of the day, and I've done everything what I could do. So picked up the guys from school, brought them to training, helped on the training pitch, and tried to learn everything you can get from all the experts working since long time in soccer. And then I recognized that a lot of decisions were made by experience and maybe also by the feeling and the instinct of the stomach. And at that time, most of the clubs, becoming a bit more professional. So the first databases were into, and I am not a tech guy, but I raised up with a computer in the house. So I tried to put everything together, and maybe the most easiest way to use. So in the morning, most of the time, I had a lot of paperwork on the desk, and it's okay, but I can't read what's on the page, so maybe you can send me an email, so it's easy for everybody. I got more responsibility, and I helped in the offices to get a better structure, to work more efficient. During that time, I went to the university to study economics, but after that, they told me always, okay, we don't have any jobs here. Maybe you go to a smaller club and take your experience you have learned here and try to build up. But the first of time, I want to travel around, take the experience before I take a job, learn another language. So I decided to go to South America to try to learn Spanish. And they asked me, okay, you have done a lot in the scouting department. Maybe you can help out with the network. And for me, it was the second dream, I would say. So I went to Buenos Aires, went 4 hours every day learning Spanish, and in the afternoon and in the night I went to soccer games. And after, the idea was maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, as long as I have money in the pocket. And then they recognized that maybe the first reports were helpful, so I stayed at the end half year. We took a player from South America, and I came back with him to Leverkusen, so I got the next step, helping him with a translation in the dressing room, knowing the coaches, knowing how the things are getting in the dressing room, contract situations, and I always had people at my side. They supported me, and especially at that time, Stefan came into me, my former boss, who supported me a lot, went to Bayern Munich, so I could take his job as a sport director, and that was maybe my history in some words. Yeah.
So the lesson there is to drive the players to practice, just do all of the extra stuff, right? Because then you get an opportunity, you're in Argentina for 6 months, and eventually you become a very young sporting director. Am I right? That's the lesson?
Yeah.
Do all of the things that you have to do to get there. I love it. Okay, so now let's go back to Stefan, coming to you, and you're now the sporting director, with this idea. How do you empower that? What do you do with that?
Yeah, first of all, when he asked me if I have a bit of time, I was a bit, maybe not scary, but I thought, okay, he has been always a smart guy, so maybe he has an idea to explain me that he needs a raise. Then he told me, no, I developed a new company. I said, okay, maybe he will show me why he needs a raise, because he's better than everybody expected. And when I listened to him, I was really impressed, because it has been the very first time that I saw that there's a merge of somebody who knows the practice on the pitch, but also is open-minded to the theoretic things. Because most of the time, like I said, people in soccer have made decisions by the instinct, by the experience, and then the data people came and explained everything in the theoretic way, but it never fits together, because you work at the end with people. And I said, wow, that sounds really good. And I can say maybe at this time I was your first customer.
Definitely, but it was the opposite of getting a raise, because you asked us to do like 2 use cases. First one was a player you want to sign was Kevin Campbell, who actually went to RB Leipzig. And second one is doing our match analysis and squad analysis. So it was a weird situation, because I created KPIs which he then used to evaluate our performances, and to be honest, I was sitting on the bench sometimes back in the time, and the data reflected it. So it was not that smart, I would say.
Instead of going in to ask for a raise, he asked you to do some free work of giving him the data and then seeing whether or not he wanted to implement it at the time.
Exactly. We had some employees asking me if we can
tweak the data.
Tweak my data, but no, of course we didn't do it. Yeah.
Okay, so Jonas, one of the big things is you're talking about how historically in a lot of clubs or in any workplace, you do things the way that it is done historically, right? That's just how you learn to do it. But now you're introduced to this idea that you can change how things are being done in the scouting department and in other ways. And you now have access to leadership of this club, where you have the medical team, the ticketing team, the contracts, and how do you bring all of that together to implement IMPECT and everything else?
Yeah, that's a very, very good example, because with with the company Stefan founded, you could show up in the first beginning that what you see maybe, you can put it on the paper, you can explain it to the coach or to other people. But this has been one software in a very, very specific way of talking about players and the style of playing. But as you mentioned, I'm talking about contracts, talking with the coaches, how they want to train. We talk in the companies what you're doing in every department. So at that time I got in touch with Achim and with the company he has in the back. They explained, okay, we work for a lot of companies and we can build up everything a part of sport. So maybe we can find a way to found or to develop our software to put everything together. So I can sit there on my desk and have everything together, which is more into deep and more specific. But especially when you work in the sports sector, the people want to use it very, very easy and on a smart way, and maybe not on the scientific way, I would say. So yeah, at this time, I don't want to talk about destiny, but luckily I met these two guys, and it helped me a lot to work more efficient. Yeah.
That leads us to you, Ahim.
Yeah.
He comes to you, and you have the IT background, the technology background to go ahead and bring this all together, right, into a product solution. So talk me through what SAP does and how you help the clubs.
Right. So I don't want to put myself and overestimate myself, but I think it's really what happened at that time, and also in some years before, in 2012 and 2014 with the World Cup. SAP is one of the leading software companies in the world, but mainly known for business application, for doing the accounting stuff, for all the other activities. But they were lacking, of course, experience in sports, and especially in football, although the company has been committed, of course, due to the founders, to sports, to football. So one of the founders is Dietmar Opp. He is a owner of the TSG Hoffenheim, but also Hasso Plattner, the other founder, is addicted to ice hockey. He owns the NHL Sharks, in the San Jose Sharks. So this is when it all started, and we started from traditional partnership engagements to bringing the experience what a technology guy and a technology company has as their strengths into the context of football. And so if you look at the back-end slide on the right or left picture on the iPad, there's this young coach also that we started to work with. Some of them might know him. He was at that time the U19 coach of TSG Hoffenheim. Julian Nagelsmann, now the head coach of the German national team, always addicted to technology. And this is how we work. We always collected feedback from our customers, also bringing the link back to Stefan when it was about the World Cup in 2014. Software development was approaching there at these times design thinking methodology. So thinking about put yourself in the perspective of the player. What do they need, in which position, in what situation do they want to consume information? And so we developed journeys for the players for each role in the club, where we evaluated the feedback from Jonas, but also here from Jogi Löw from the national team, how they can really adopt and use software in a different way, that we don't talk about software, but we talk about value, what you need to bring to the pitch, to the players, to make better decisions, to work more efficiently, to leverage data, which is really helpful if you have meaningful data, meaningful KPIs, but you need these meaningful KPIs in the right context, at the right time, to the right audience. And that's what we did, and that's what we have been developing since 2014, now for 10 years, for a decade. And also looking here at the picture below on the right side on the iPad, that was on the bench at the European Championship at the Austrian national team with Ralf Rangnick, also using that this time, how they adopted during the matches on site with their application. That's how we have been really growing and getting experience, collecting experience, and turning that into a product.
So before we get to the Austrian national team, the German national team, and how you guys integrated and helped them.
Yeah, it's actually, as Jonas also said, we collected that feedback, and today, if you look in the world of sports, and also if you walk around here at SoccerX, it's a mess. It's not just one software. It's for every need that you could dream of, there's a different software. So you are lacking, in reality, how to get to that common picture that you are looking for. into a consolidated view. And a lot of clubs are struggling because they are facing now challenges like APIs. We need to integrate these topics, and a lot of data, the new job profiles, data scientists, which are generated, building a platform. And the vision of SAP was, let's build out of the experience that you have collected out of the different showcases, one platform that collects as an all-in-one platform this data to make the life more easy, and to integrate data from the data providers that we ship already APIs to integrate the impact data and the event data into the platform, that they can use it more efficiently, and that we then provide processes, business processes or sports processes like injury prevention, like supporting coaching with training plans and training recommendations, integrating players with a well-being journey about the return to play process, running the match preparation in a different process, and all of those elements in one common platform, which is standard. So I always compare the product somehow like Microsoft PowerPoint. There is no competitive advantage between the different companies if they are using Microsoft PowerPoint. It's about the content and how they adopt presentation, things are doing that. And that's what we put on analytics, that the use of data is the magic, and also to do the right visualizations in the context of that topic. And that's what we are doing, and that is what we have now developing, having now more than 30,000 users globally running this product on those platforms.
So not to get too dense, but while we can see the football aspect of the health, fitness, training match and the player side of it, you also combine the ticketing aspects, the fan engagement aspects, like a platform really with a 360 view.
With a 360 view, I think clubs are always challenging. Take the example of salary management for players. Salaries are very complicated in sports because they get bonuses for in the starting lineup, scoring, and these are contract details, but you need to mix the data with the event data that is being generated. So you get an extra bonus if you score a goal, and if you can that automate in a platform, that's why the power of an integrated platform is so meaningful to many of our clients.
So can you take us through, you mentioned it earlier, the Austrian Football Federation and how that SAP kind of integrated into helping them?
Absolutely. If you look in a country, in a very small country like Austria, in Austria you have around 3,000 professional athletes which have the potential to get to a national team. So you have different academies of the Premier clubs, of the First League clubs. You have from the country operated coaching schools, academy schools. And the goal and the ambition is, of course, in that country, find the best talent in the country. Who is the fastest sprinter ever that has been identified in Austria in the age of 14 or 15? And this is a big challenge because when we look today also with camera technologies that are offered or professional data like what IMPECT is collecting, they start on a certain level, but you're missing the grassroots. This is where you find the top talents that you need to grow. And what is the big advantage, what the Austrian story is all about, it's not about technology, but it's about sustainable following their development processes, since they're doing this now for 7 years and collecting data from that age from 7 years, since 7 years. So they collected these information of players at the age of 14, 15, which are national team players. And they also understand, and they achieve now great packings. Well, they have passes behind the line, so the player profile specific KPIs which are presented and collected by IMPECT, but we tell the story what happened, that you educated, that you trained this player to get to that level, that he achieved those KPIs, because that's all collected in the database. Or imagine about the development of youth players. There are the areas where they have different growth areas where they are growing, and if they are growing, there's a higher risk of an injury, of a bone injury. So the coaches know exactly when do we have to remove a player from and reduce the load to avoid that this player gets injured, because there are some injuries in youth players that are severe injuries that will even have a negative impact that they ever have a chance to get to a national team player, even if they have talent. It's also that injuries might be severe, and which types of injury are severe. This is what they can identify that would block them to get to a national team player.
So I know that German football has this grand history, and you guys are known for being good at football, but here in the US, something that we have kind of come to is the development of players is where it's lacking, right? So this is where a solution like this would help. So say that you identify a player at 7 to 14 years old that is solid, that can be a professional player. How do you use the KPIs that you have to direct the club or the federation, say, to say, this is how you can manage him to become a pro?
I think it's interesting to follow that there are some academies that are very well reputed. And I think, first of all, I believe that talent is distributed equally within a country in a certain age. The challenge is how to identify the talent, and then what are the activities that you need to do to enrich and strengthen the talent that they get really to meaningful achievements and growing the talents. And what you can compare out of the data is what had been the activities. Is it more important to train with a person on the athletic skills in a certain age, or maybe on the mental skills? How do you measure the mental skills or the mental development and mental improvements? And out of the experience and comparing different academies, you understand there are academies that are generating and growing more talents compared to other academies. And this is now the impact that you can understand which measures and which activities help the players to get to that further level.
Wow.
It's still skills which are the brain, which is owned by the Austrian Federation, but we are more or less the technical backbone to fulfill this development journey. And that's the amazing thing. And of course, if you look back, like also other players and famous players in the German national team that were successful, followed that road and also identified those KPIs, where probably Stefan can also enrich how those KPIs from IMPECT helped in the development of the journey.
Yeah, so Stefan, I know you're the data expert here, so talk us through how those KPIs are, I guess, shown in professional players that we know.
Yes, perhaps one personal story in the beginning. So Bayer Leverkusen wanted to take me out when I was 15 or 16, I guess when I was 16, and because they thought I'm not good enough. When I was 17, I was a youth national player for Germany. When I was 18, I got a professional contract. So things are sometimes quite close to each other because evaluating player performances or quality was mainly driven by opinions. And this is, of course, something we want to change a bit. And yeah, as you asked for this example, okay, how can you evaluate if a player who's 13 years old, 14 years old, if he can make it to professional, and if once he's a professional, if he can make it to the top? I like this example a lot. I'm not sure if anyone from you knows this player. It's called Julian Weigel. Yeah, Daniel Lucas, yeah. It could be an interesting player for Charlotte, I guess, that's right. But most of you don't, and I guess I know why, because of the story somehow. So he was a regular starter playing for Borussia Mönchengladbach, a Bundesliga club in Germany, and then made it to Borussia Dortmund, and his head coach was, back in the time, was Thomas Tuchel. So won the Champions League with Chelsea FC, trained Bayern Munich and Paris. And he actually uses our data a lot to communicate it towards players. Of course, I would have loved it as a player. And he created a pathway for Julian Weigel. He mentioned to him, well, in this season, I don't know, 15, 16, whatever, he bypassed 37 opponents on average per game. And this was like slightly above average back in this time. Unfortunately, slightly above my numbers as well. But you can easily see this player, Granit Xhaka. I guess some of you might know him because he played for Arsenal London and now for my former club, Bayer Leverkusen, and won the championship with them. He had pretty good numbers, 55 opponents. And on the right-hand side, you can see Toni Kroos. And Toni Kroos won the Champions League uncountable times, 5 times, 6 times, didn't know where to stop. Yeah, and just in a few words, Thomas Tuchel just showed him the truth. If you want to be a regular starter for the German national team, you should reach these numbers. If you want to reach Champions League finals and want to win it, you need to reach these numbers. Within this specific case, he didn't make it. This is why none of you know the player. But of course, this is interesting because it's showing a player the truth. Because I guess Jonas knows it. All of the football players think they should be a regular starter for Real Madrid and Manchester City, but most of them are not, and there's a reason why. And it's somehow, imagine you're a long jumper and you want to train to be a better long jumper. Then I guess it would be nice to know the distance you jumped. But in football, there was no distance measured like this, and yeah, this is like somehow our approach to get a bit further to this.
So you get this information, right, that, okay, he needs to increase the number of opponents he's bypassing. How do you use that to develop a player? Because now we're talking about the development of, say, US players, because selfishly I want our national team to be better. How do you get them to become better at packing, at bypassing players with passing?
Yeah, that's interesting. Now it's going back, and I guess it's there are lots of stories from the NBA as well that about the expected point stuff. So from where do you take the shot, so that you use the data and afterwards use it for training as well. And I guess this is somewhat the story, because then the head coach Thomas Tuchel, of course, was thinking about, okay, how can I train this with Julian Weigel that is more that is bypassing more opponents. And this actually leads to SIP as well, because then it's about, okay, thinking about the next training session, how can you train it, how can we be better at it? So I guess this is where some of our work stops. We just provide the data and explain the concept behind, but then it leads to other software tools, perhaps to training sessions where your software is also used, but then, yeah, it's another way.
Please.
Yeah. So as you said, it leads to the training sessions, and also it's about the philosophy. I think not every training session works, but you also in this platform, you need to think about the way of playing football, about your football philosophy, and it's not just for the players, but it's also important for the coaches. There's so much fluctuation, so you should make your decisions not on the current coach who is working with within your team, but you should follow on your vision and your strategy of playing football. So you put the philosophy of football into the platform that helps coaches to really develop and grow those players, because often there is in football so much changes in stuff and people going away. And you need to, if you really want to develop players, then it's not just a one-time activity. It takes 5 to 10 years if you look at the career path. And you need to keep this kind of commitment and sustainable work that you get independent of the current coaches, but based on your philosophy to grow the players. And that's why it's so important that you don't focus on a technology, but on your vision, on your strategy to grow. And also it's about the human itself. It's not just about technology. It's about humans, about people, how you work with the people, and that you share that information, that you can help people to grow. And it's not just about the technology.
So eventually, Jonas, I want to bring you back into this. If we have all of this information, can we get to a point where we know what kind of philosophy of football is more effective? What philosophy of leadership within a club is more effective? What kind of coaching style gets across better? Because I feel like, especially in that later instance, it depends on the personalities and how they react to certain coaching. So when you have the data, can you eventually get to this philosophy is key or king?
Yeah, I'm definitely convinced. And as I said in the beginning, for sure you have your idea in your mind, and that's what you give to the players or give to the coaches when you work with them, when you encourage them, when you try to help them as a personality. But that's in my mind, in my brain. And if you talk to somebody else, maybe he has his own ideas and how you can put it on the table that everybody understands what exactly do you mean. So in that case, the data is one piece, and make it very, very simple and easy to understand helps a lot. So for me, that's the reason why an iPhone is so much time used and sold in the world, because you decide what you put in. But at the end, the things behind, it's very, very smart idea. And it helps me also, like Stefan told us, when we took a player Campbell, we know him fair well. And sometimes when you talk to the coach, you are not sure what you explain if he understands in the right way. So then use the data and we talk about this philosophy if it fits together. So when I changed the club from Leverkusen to Hamburg, I was very, very happy that Hamburg was also working with Stefan and the company and also with SAP. So I said, okay, I want to put this philosophy inside, and I can already see which is on the right way in my mind, or maybe which issues we have to change or adapt or adjust. And yeah, I think the key is that you need the technology, and both of them put in my opinion, very, very important step in soccer to work more efficient, but you need the people behind that they understand or put it on the pitch as a player or maybe as a coach or whatever. Because at the end, it's a people business.
Right.
I think it's, just let me add here something. As you said, I think it's people business, and I think still it's important that you are in the driver's seat to make the decision to build the philosophy. And technology, whatever technology you're using, is just the enabler. So what we are doing, and a lot of now people are talking about AI. Also, we are doing a couple of AI scenarios already in the area of scouting activities. But I think there's like when clubs are taking players under contract, and I think they are not just the view on the data, but also on the characteristics, on the personality. And leading clubs, they write up to 40 scouting reports by different people. So at the end, if you don't use AI, of course, someone has to consolidate that report, and you tell them, hey, we have the next scouting session, give me some information, and then people have to work with all those scouting reports, write the summaries, etc. And AI, and we have some of the first AI scenarios in that area that do the classification, that do the segmentation. But still, even if you use AI, remember it's the humans that make the final decision, and the technology is always an enabler, even if we believe that AI is a huge enabler in regards of increasing the efficiency, but it should never replace the human thinking.
Right. Okay, so I don't want to run out of time for any questions because, like I mentioned, it's dense in some ways, but it's also the human aspect. So are there any questions? And if we have a good amount of questions, I won't keep going with the panel. I'll let you guys ask what you want answered. Sure.
You start first?
She asked about lifestyle data also being integrated.
You mean lifestyle or life data? Ah, sure. So I can start what I realize.
From the club side, we try, but at the end, it's the most important question, how you get these data. For sure, you can scan whatever a player maybe puts in a social media or whatever. But this, especially in Europe or Germany, the market is different than here. So a lot of business is working from behind. So knowing the player, if he's not working with you, it's very, very hard to understand and to know him better, because most of the time it's not really allowed to get in touch with him until he is under contract with a different team.
And if you would screen the social media from all the football players, you couldn't sign anybody afterwards, so I guess you shouldn't do it.
Correct, but what I also see in a couple of those, that's why I said when clubs put players under contract, sometimes they're up to 40 scouting reports. Of course, they are trying to get the complete picture of the player, but as Stefan already said, everybody has posted someday pictures that he wouldn't like to remember on social media. But still, of course, you try to get as good and as much information as needed to get to a sustainable decision.
Yeah, sometimes if they are linked to, for example, we took in Leverkusen Chicharito, which is, I think most of you know them, and for sure it helps us because Leverkusen at that time was maybe from the international side a bit smaller than he. So you can use it working with the brand, but for sure, first of all, we took the player because he was important and good to use him on the pitch and not as an advertisement or as a brand.
But that's the different layers, right? Because yes, on the football pitch, you want him as a player, and he scored a lot of goals for Manchester United for a certain time period, but also that is part of leadership of marketing-wise. He is going to bring in good numbers.
For sure, and I think it's still the most undeveloped data which maybe exists in football. And last year I went with some colleagues from German clubs to Harvard, and they asked us the question, which kind of data you would wish to have? And I said, maybe some kind of this, that I know more about the personality. For example, if Achim and Stefan fits together if they play in the same team. So I have all the stats and if they're good players, but there are some people behind. And as a team, if you want to be successful, you spend a lot of time together, sometimes more than with your own wife or children. So at some point, you have to know which kind of motivation he has. It's the same one, or if they fit together or not. But there's still a lot to do, and you can't do an assessment center before, because everybody will know it and maybe put more problems with you.
And I see also the value of this lifestyle data more relevant in the area of your fan engagement activities to increase merchandise and revenue, etc. So it's a different audience, different areas in the business, not versus in the scouting department. Of course, for fan engagement activities, that's a necessity.
There's still a way to go.
Yeah. Well, that lifestyle data, although it doesn't exist yet, would be really interesting, because we've seen a lot of players that while their stats are good, and even within your analysis can be good, they'll go to a certain country or a certain league and then just bomb and not be the player that you expected them to be. That would be the psychological question there. Are there more questions? Okay, I'll ask questions. I'm very curious about all this. So one of the things that you mentioned are the personalities. So you don't have that data, but when you say the amount of time that a team spends together, as an example, what is the balance of that? That's something that you guys can have data on. When a coach requires you to do the team meals together or sleep at the hotel right next to the stadium the day before, is that more effective than letting them be with their families the night before of a game? Is that something that data could help with?
Yeah, I think there has been a change, especially after COVID, and to teams, they travel a lot, because in earlier years they put the players the day before into a hotel because they couldn't have too much stupid ideas or to went out. But right now, I think the world is so well known. So everything you do, especially when you are famous, it will come out. And the people are more professional. Maybe they like to spend the time at home with the family. So right now, I would say it's sometimes better to sleep at home to rest, because you really rest and you're professional enough to know what you have to do, then maybe 10 or 20 years before, where you usually have to close them into one hotel that nobody went out or do stupid
Well, then
things.
it varies, right? Because say you have a newborn at home, you're probably not staying with your newborn the night before a big match, Champions League match. Stefan, I want to allow you to kind of take us through a little bit more data, because it's really interesting. And when we talk about something that maybe is a little more closer to home, now that we're in Miami, is an example in MLS.
Yeah, cool. The first example we just showed was about player development, the Julian Weigel and Toni Kroos stuff, but second topic, of course, for most of MLS clubs, it's also relevant to just sign better players, right? So if you can sign Messi, I guess you will increase your performance.
We would all sign Messi, right?
Yeah. But interestingly, Messi was, from our point of view, not the best player in the MLS, but it was Ricky Puig. I don't know the player quite good, but I had several meetings with MLS clubs in the last week, and they also agreed. And one thing, I guess, for a club is that the player is good, but there's not enough, so to say, because it's not baseball, and not every... I have a terrible understanding of baseball, but I think they all play the same, right? Somebody's throwing, somebody is hitting the ball. Football, you have various style of plays, so Ricky Puig might be not a player for Charlotte FC, or not fitting as good as in your style of play. So I guess it's mainly your role to create a vision of what you want to play, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's very helpful to see what he's doing into the team, but you always need to have the vision if it fits to the people you have, because as you mentioned, sometimes they work at that place, but when they change the city or maybe the culture, it's completely different.
Yeah. So for just in a few words, so he has a profile like a central creator, so we try to put it in like a football language so that it's easy to understand. Some people think if it's a complex topic, you have to need a complex visualization in Tableau. We think we want to make it as easy as possible. And so, for example, this is what it looks like for a sporting director of, of the MLS. You can see on the left-hand side all his offensive abilities. So this is a radar chart. So actually you see he's fantastic if the team's in possession. He's terrible if the team's out of possession. So he's just like falling asleep or into debt or whatever. And of course it's about like finding the next Ricky Puig in the MLS Next Pro in the second division in Japan or whatever. Of course there are some cultural differences, but yeah, still this is one important topic for the clubs, of course.
Beautiful. Ahim, what am I missing? What else do we need to get through that SAP, Impact, and do for clubs, associations, everything?
So actually, I think you had got today a good overview about the idea, and I think what you should ask yourself the question is, first of all, how much technology you really want to do, and is technology what you need in that area? So getting on common sense on the area, and also think, and I think this is what, at least in Europe, is one of the biggest challenges, is the long-term vision, that you make decisions not on a single point, but really consider an investment in technology for a couple of years, that it takes time until you see positive results. That's something as a takeaway, which is definitely something independent of the tool. And one of the sayings that I really like to do, the closing is always like, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So think about what you're doing.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.